Welcome to the Law School Insider, where we have conversations with students, lawyers, and employers.
Succeeding in law school is something that you must prepare for, not only before you begin, but throughout your law school journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. I am your host, Dr. Christopher Lewis, and I will draw from my over 20 years of experience in the college admission field, as well as bring forth the experiences of others as we delve deeper into the issues. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Law School Insider. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Lewis, and I'm so excited to have you back again this week. This week, I am pleased to be able to bring back Nelson Miller, who is a professor and an associate dean of the Grand Rapids campus at Western Michigan University, Cooley Law School. And as you might remember, if you've been listening for quite a while, he was on in the past and talked to us about getting into law school and some of his perspectives as a dean and a professor at a law school, and he gave you some great insights about that whole process. And today, we are bringing him back to be able to talk about getting through law school and some of the things that you need to be thinking about as you go through law school. How do you access some of the best and hidden gems that are within law school? And how do you really make it through this whole process to be able to get to that light at the end of the tunnel, which is getting ready for not only the bar exam, but getting ready for your career. So, Dean Miller, thanks so much for being back with us again this week.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to addressing the subject.
Well, I am very excited to talk about this topic. We haven't really talked a lot about this topic. We've talked about different contexts and some different contextual pieces of the topic, but not in general. So I'm really excited to be able to delve a little bit deeper into this. Now, last time we talked about the whole process of kind of getting in and getting acclimated to law school. But then once you do get acclimated and get familiar with the process, feel that you're kind of in your groove, then you start to have to look around, and you have to look at all of the things that are around you. And there's a lot of opportunities that will surround you in law school. How do you start to whittle down what is right for you from all of the different opportunities that do surround you in law school?
Yeah, great question. Very important subject for students, especially after they get their first term grades. That's about the moment when students begin to worry less about kind of getting into law school and being able to manage the program, which the vast majority of them do and do quite well, to the point of, okay, well, I'm here and it looks like I'm succeeding. What do I do while I'm here as I go through the program? So I really do think of it just as you introduced in terms of sort of getting in, going through, and getting out. The getting out part being particularly important about passing the bar and acquiring a job. But the going through part is where probably I'm more involved with students than in the getting in or getting out part. And the going through part, again, beginning usually early in the second term, has a lot to do with just what you said earlier, and that's students discovering the sort of hidden aspects. Well, they're not hidden, but they're actually pretty heavily advertised, that they're not necessarily the required aspects of the law school program, sort of discovering what's there on the campus that's available and why they should access it. Now, it's sort of not too hard to discover those things because the law school will have newsletters and marquees and other ways of advertising those activities. But I think the key to knowing what to choose, because there's always way more than any one student can do, the key to choosing any one or collect number of programs really is in understanding how they connect with the student's goals. Why, for instance, would a student take first-year competition, enter a competition, or prepare to join law review or law journal at the school? Or why should they be concerned about their class standing? Even things like if the school offers a portfolio program, or as every law school does, why should they join a student organization with which they have an affinity? How do these things connect with learning about law, learning about careers, and then passing the bar and obtaining a job? So that's the real key. First is just understanding how the programs available at every law school or many law schools will best serve the student.
Now, I know that you have interacted with a lot of different students in their time, and you've seen students that have found different niches for themselves, different things that would allow for them to find success. And have you found any commonalities in the students that are most successful, that as they are going through that law school experience and the things that they take advantage of, that they are doing along the way to be able to find that success?
Well, sure. There are some things that really all students or most students share in the curriculum, and they're probably the obvious things. I mentioned class standing. Grades are sort of a big part of law school, at least for some students. Grades are a tool, in a sense, for how students might connect with careers, qualify for certain positions. On the other hand, grades are really no tool or very modest tool for many students. I don't think I ever had a client ask me what my grades were in law school, even though my grades were pretty darn good. It just doesn't matter when you get out that much. So what I found in studying this question of how different programs in law school serve different students is that there are probably about 40 or 50 different sort of programs or tools that law schools offer, and any one student may use any one of those tools to great effect to be able to choose and confirm a career and a job and obtain a job. Choose a career and obtain a job. In fact, I actually did a little exercise in this, wrote a little book of 40 different things you can do in law school. And then I reached out to the graduates of our campus, asking them if, in fact, any one of those 40 things made a difference. And of course, I knew each of those graduates well. And I ended up getting 40 attestations from graduates, each of them saying, oh, I did this one thing, and it was perfect for me because it helped me choose a career. It got me my job, and I'm loving that job. And just to go back for a quick example to, let's take law review. There are a lot of students who are on law review, a lot of students who aren't. But for one or two students, it seems like every time, they will have a law review experience that will teach them about a certain scholarly subject, teach them certain writing and editing skills, and connect them with a certain, let's say, job opportunity altogether. And it's like, thank goodness for law review. For other students, it might be a clinic experience. For other students, a pro bono or community service experience. For some students, it's networking. Maybe it's joining a professional organization or even attending a professional conference outside of the law school, but supported by the law school. So you can just begin to imagine all the different things and how any one of them could be the really critical or key activity for any one student. It's fascinating.
What you're saying, it sounds like there's not one specific pathway that has to be correct. But what is the key here is finding ways to not just join something, but to be able to, as I said earlier, as I just mentioned, I mentioned the word pathway, but it's finding ways to create a pathway for yourself. And in that pathway, you have not only learning that is happening, but that learning is helping you to connect with your career. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Oh, absolutely. And pathways is just a great way to describe it. I'll give you a different example. I mentioned law review, mentioned going to a conference or joining a student organization or professional organization, but let's take something very different. We have a pathway at the law school for students who intend to enter sole practice, to be solo practitioners. And the kinds of activities, the kinds of tools that students engaged or pursuing that pathway might want to use would include things like financial management, just, to graduate with modest or little debt and to know how to manage one's personal and professional finances. But take technology as another example. There are all kinds of opportunities in law school to learn about practice technologies, and a graduate who's wants to be a sole practitioner would probably want to learn how to use those technologies because they're so powerful in practice. I'll give even one more example about a student pursuing a sole practice pathway, and that would be advisors for the student. We have professors here at the law school who really do focus on helping students acquire the skills and identity to be effective in sole practice, and they are really crucial advisors. They're really mentors of the type that you would have within a law firm. So mentors are another example of one of those sort of hidden resources at a law school that could be, critical for a graduate. It doesn't matter whether you're going to a large firm, whether you want to be a judge, whether you want to work for an agency or be in-house as corporate counsel, or be in sole practice. You may need a different set of skills and experiences, and this law school for sure, and I think most law schools offer a broad set of experiences, tools, and activities to pursue those pathways, each one of those pathways. So learning about them and learning how they connect with careers is really key to getting through law school effectively.
Now, you talked about mentors, and I think mentors are very important, not only in law school, but in your career as well. And sometimes you can find mentors easily, and sometimes it's more difficult. But attaining and also developing those relationships with the mentors takes time. What have you found for students that want to develop strong mentorship relationships with faculty, with other professionals as they're going through law school? Are there certain traits, skills, or other things that they should be working on now that would help them to be able to start developing those relationships quickly and efficiently as they get into law school?
Oh, sure. And I think that there are two kinds of mentor relationships, maybe two ends of a mentor spectrum. I think a lot of students really do find in law school a key mentor, somebody who really gets to know them well. Often it's an assigned faculty advisor. Certainly here at the law school, we assign faculty advisors to every student. And sometimes that faculty advisor will, truly get to know about the student's character and interests and become a, really wonderful guide. But maybe at the other end of the spectrum are kind of these episodic mentors, these almost incidental mentors. And I hope that students feel free to, visit with any number of different faculty members who are not their advisors, also with the school's deans, also with the school's staff, and then especially to access programs that the school may have for alumni mentor and even upper term, sort of senior student mentors, because wise decisions benefit from a varied counsel. So, to see a mentor one time around one issue, that could be, just critical, a great activity, but also to have somebody at law school who knows you well and can be a really sound counsel, that would be good too. So mentors are definitely one of those tools. Schools will have deliberate mentorship programs, student to student, faculty to student, alumni to student. But that's, again, just one of the several dozen tools that law schools offer. I'll give you one other quick example. Elective courses, they're a wonderful tool. You can choose, so many electives or fewer if you're doing externships or clinical experiences, or more electives. You can choose them in a field, or you can choose them broadly to explore several fields. I use myself as a quick example. I chose a lot of electives in a very narrow field. When I was in law school, I ended up using that tool very poorly, because the career I ended up choosing and the job that I got had nothing to do with that very narrow field where I had taken a good deal of electives. But that's just another example that students can use the choice of elective courses to help equip them for a field, to explore fields, even if it doesn't turn out as it didn't in my case.
Now, once you find a mentor, once you are talking to them, are there certain things that you recommend that students do to be able to foster that relationship, to make it stronger? Are there specific things that a student can do to be able to foster a stronger relationship with that mentor?
That's an interesting question. I'm not at all concerned when students, drop in once and I give them my best and they, don't return. And I wonder if I was of any help. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But if I look back, the relationships that I've had with students where I really do feel like I was most useful to the student, it tends to be where the student is willing to sort of engage in the ways in which I can help. And just a quick example, I can give a student who's going to practice locally the names of any number of prospective employers, outstanding lawyers who might be employers or at least mentors or refer cases or do other things. And some students will, I'll name names and they probably won't take any notes and they probably won't go have coffee or lunch or a meal with any of those lawyers. But sometimes students will listen carefully and they'll choose one of the professionals whom I name and ask me for an introduction to that professional. And then I can do that. I can send an email, make a phone call, even write a letter of introduction for the student. So I think in part it's willing to accept the service that a mentor offers, to rely on their offer, again, of an introduction of a resource or something else. The other suggestion I'd have in mentor relationships is sometimes making it a two-way street can be good too. And I'll give you an example of that. Students will actually bring me things that help me in my work, whether that's a scholarship interest or even a teaching interest, a teaching resource. And sometimes they'll even offer to work with me on those projects. For example, one of those other sort of programs that the law school here offers are teaching assistant and research assistant roles. We hire, retain, and pay students to act as research assistants and as teaching assistants. And when a student is willing to engage in that work, and they're compensated for it, and they learn from it. It's a service to the professor who employs them. It's a service to the school, and it's a service to other students. And I think they benefit from it as well. So, yeah, I think mentor relationships, being willing to engage in the relationship, rely on the relationship, accept offers of service, and even make offers of service back. That's probably the way to make the best use of them.
I love that example, and I love that advice, because I think that having a mentor is definitely critical, especially as you're getting out into your career, as you are trying to develop not only your personal identity, but your professional identity. So being able to have them throughout your personal and professional life will definitely assist you in that journey. So thank you for sharing that. Now, are there any other things that you have seen students either access, identify with, or get involved with as they go through the law school experience that you would want to share with others today that would help others to be able to think differently about the experience of going through law school, that might help them to be able to get toward the end of their law school career and be able to be prepared for the job search and beyond?
Yes, a good question, because when we think carefully about these programs, they really do group themselves into sort of curricular programs, still sort of trying to equip students with the knowledge, skills, and ethics, and then professional development tools. And to really make connections with careers, students ought to begin to focus on those professional development tools. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples. You can simply do some research on, let's say, law firms, employers, and other things like that. Another professional development tool, I briefly mentioned portfolios. If you're working fairly deliberately on your resume, writing sample, maybe even a professional photograph, if you're working a little bit on your dress and demeanor, that's an important part of professional identity, to kind of look the part. And we have programs, as I'm sure most other law schools do, to help students understand how to dress and how to act. We have luncheons and dinners, an SBA, Student Bar Association ball, and all of these programs and activities really are trying to help a student acquire sort of that kind of professional persona, that is really critical to career success. So if you're really talking about toward the end of the law school career, working on all of those professional development tools and can be really important. And of course, also the clinical work, pro bono and clinics and externships and judicial clerkships and all of those more traditional kind of career steps. Still other tools in which students ought to engage, or at least ought to think about which are the best tools for them.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all of this today. As always, you have shared some amazing resources, tips, and more. And I'm going to put a link to the book that you mentioned. What was the name of the book that you mentioned earlier?
Sure. The critical one here is The Law Graduate's Guide. And the subtitle is, much as you were saying, the hidden curriculum, navigating the hidden curriculum of law school.
I will put a link in our notes today for all of you to be able to access that wonderful resource that Dean Miller has mentioned. And Dean Miller, I really appreciate you being with us today. We'll definitely have to have you back again in the future. And as always, I wish you all the best.
Well, you too. Thanks so much for including me.
Well, that was another great guest this week on the Law School Insider. If you have an interest in being a guest on the show, drop me an email at lawschoolinsider@Cooley, COOLEY.edu. And thank you all for listening today. And remember, you have the ability and right to take control of your law school's success. I hope you'll continue listening, creating a plan for success that will prepare you to achieve the dreams that you have set for yourself. Talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. You're on your way to being a law school insider. Please subscribe to stay connected and come back again next time as we speak to more students, lawyers, and employers. College admission field, as well as bring forth the experiences of others as we delve deeper into the issues.